She's just a coworker, he said, but his phone never left his hand when she texted. Curious, I sent him a flirty message from a random number. His reply came instantly, wish I could see you right now. My stomach turned. That night, I dressed up for our anniversary, he barely noticed. As he smiled at his phone, I whispered, texting someone special? He laughed, just a work thing. I smirked and sent him one last text from my fake number, guess who's watching? He looked up, and froze as I held up my phone. I always thought that if I ever got cheated on, I'd walk away without a second thought. No screaming, no begging, no trying to fix what was already broken. Just quiet dignity and a packed bag. But life has a way of making you eat your words. It started small. A shift, a subtle change, the kind you almost talk yourself out of noticing. Eric and I had been married for 8 years. We were comfortable, settled. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our favorite takeout orders memorized. Our relationship had its ups and downs, sure, but I never once thought I had to worry about another woman. Then Lena came along. Lena was a new hire at his firm. He mentioned her once or twice in passing. No big deal. Just a coworker. Just someone in the office. But then he started mentioning her more. Talking about her ideas, her sense of humor, how she was so easy to work with. Then came the little things. His phone, which used to sit forgotten on the coffee table, was now always in his hand. He took it everywhere, shower, garage, even to grab something from the car. He started leaving it face down. At first, I didn't think anything of it. But then I caught his expression once when a message popped up. A quick flick of his eyes toward me. The way he subtly angled the screen away before answering. I asked about it once. Who are you texting? He didn't even look up. Just a work thing. A work thing. Right. I let it go. Because I wasn't crazy. Because I trusted him. Because I didn't want to be that wife. But the signs kept coming. His schedule changed. Suddenly, he had more late nights at the office. More client meetings that ran long. His cologne started running out faster. He bought a new shirt out of nowhere, something I'd never seen him wear before. And then the real red flag, he started smiling at his phone. Not just any smile. Not a casual, haha, funny meme smile. No, this was different. This was soft. This was warm. This was the way he used to look at me. I knew. I knew before I even had proof. But proof is what I needed. So I got a burner phone. I felt sick doing it. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to set a trap for my own husband. But I had to know. I had to see it with my own eyes. I typed out a message. Something casual. Hey, you. Had a dream about you last night. Wish I could see you right now. I hit send. Less than 30 seconds later, his reply came through. God, I wish I could see you too. My stomach dropped. No hesitation. No, who is this? No confusion. Just a direct, eager response. Like he had done this before. Like he was waiting for this. I stared at my phone for a long time, reading and rereading those words. Wish I could see you too. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. I sat there, frozen, while he sat 5 feet away from me, watching TV like nothing was wrong. His phone sat beside him on the couch, face down. I could barely breathe. That night was our anniversary. I had made reservations at a restaurant we hadn't been to in years, back when we were still in that honeymoon phase. I got dressed up. Did my hair. Wore the perfume he always used to say he loved. When I stepped out of the bedroom, he glanced up once, gave me a distracted, "You look nice," and went right back to his phone. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the phone out of his hands and throw it across the room. Instead, I smiled. On the way to the restaurant, he kept checking his phone. His face would light up, then go neutral, then light up again. I could barely eat. My heart was racing, my stomach twisting itself into knots. Halfway through dinner, he laughed under his breath at something on his screen. I leaned in, my voice quiet. Texting someone special? He smirked. Just a work thing. Just a work thing. I pulled my phone out under the table. One last message from the burner number. Hope you're enjoying your anniversary, babe. Winky face. I hit send. He looked at his phone. He looked at me. And he froze. I didn't say a word. I just tilted my head slightly, watching as the realization hit him like a freight train. He blinked. Wait, I held up my real phone, showing him the messages. The entire conversation. His words, his lies, all there in black and white. I watched the color drain from his face. You wish you could see her right now? I said, voice steady. He swallowed hard. It's not what you think. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Oh, really? Because I think you've been sneaking around behind my back. I think you've been texting another woman on our anniversary. And I think you just got caught. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Say something, Eric. He looked away, rubbing his temples. I never meant for it to get this far. That hit differently. Not I didn't do anything. Not it was just a misunderstanding. Just I never meant for it to get this far. I inhaled sharply. How far did it go? He squeezed his eyes shut, shaking his head. It was just texting. Bullshit. He looked at me then, and I saw it, the guilt, the shame, the pathetic little hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd believe him. I didn't. I pushed my chair back, grabbing my purse. His voice broke. Please, don't. I stood up. And I walked out. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what came next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going home. I didn't drive straight home. I couldn't. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The city lights blurred outside the windshield as I replayed everything in my head, his face when he saw the texts, the way he tried to find the right words and failed. I had proof. I had him. But what now? Leaving seemed obvious, but the weight of 8 years together wasn't something I could just shrug off. My house was our house. My life was built around this man. Walking away wasn't just about him, it was about unraveling everything I thought was solid. So instead of going home, I drove to my sister's apartment. When she opened the door, one look at my face and she knew. Eric? I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. She didn't ask for details. She just pulled me inside, sat me down on her couch, and poured me a drink. I told her everything. By the time I was done, she was gripping her wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. So what now? That was the question, wasn't it? I rubbed my temples. I don't know. I left him sitting there, but he's gonna come home. I don't even know if I want to hear what he has to say. She hesitated. Do you think he's actually slept with her? That was the part that haunted me. I didn't know. Maybe it really was just texting. Maybe it was something more. Either way, he wanted her. And wasn't that bad enough? I stayed at my sister's that night. I put my phone on silent, not ready to see whatever desperate messages Eric was probably sending. But at some point in the middle of the night, curiosity got the best of me. I unlocked my phone. 11 missed calls. 5 unread texts. I clicked the first one. Eric, please come home. We need to talk. Eric, I messed up. I know I did. But please don't just walk away like this. Eric, I swear on everything, it wasn't what you think. It never went that far. Eric, I'll do anything. Please. And then the last one. Eric, I think she knows. I sat up so fast my heart nearly stopped. Lena knows? I clicked on it, rereading the words over and over, my breath shallow. Was he warning me? Was she mad? Before I could think too hard about it, another text popped up. From an unknown number. Unknown, you ruined everything. My stomach flipped. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. My mind raced through a million possibilities. Lena. It had to be Lena. I showed my sister the message, and she scoffed. Oh, she's mad? That's rich. A second later, another message. Unknown, you don't even know the whole story. Something cold ran down my spine. I typed back before I could stop myself. Me, then tell me. The dots appeared. She was typing. Then they disappeared. Then they came back. And then, finally, unknown, meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you everything. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had a decision to make. Go home and try to fix whatever was left of my marriage. Or meet the woman my husband wanted to see more than me. I stared at the message for a long time. Unknown, meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you everything. I knew it was Lena. I should have blocked the number. Should have ignored her. Should have gone home and dealt with my husband first. But I couldn't. Because some part of me needed to know. I texted back. Me, where? Her reply came within seconds. Unknown, the coffee shop on 5th, 10 a.m. I set my phone down and exhaled slowly. My sister shook her head. This is a bad idea. She wasn't wrong. But at this point, what was one more bad decision? The next morning, I walked into the coffee shop 5 minutes early. My stomach felt like it was filled with wet cement. I spotted her right away. She was sitting in the back corner, stirring a drink she wasn't drinking. She looked tired. Not like the polished, put-together woman I had imagined. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she kept glancing at the door like she was nervous. I walked up and sat down across from her. Neither of us spoke at first. Then, finally, she sighed and leaned back in her chair. I didn't think you'd come. I folded my arms. You texted me. So talk. She hesitated, then shook her head. You have no idea what's really going on. I clenched my jaw. Then tell me. She looked me in the eye. I tried to end it. My heart pounded. I stayed silent, letting her talk. She swallowed hard, gripping her coffee cup. I swear to you, I didn't go into this trying to be a homewrecker. I know how that sounds, but it's the truth. It started as just work. Then it was just texting. And then she stopped and exhaled. He got attached. More than I expected. More than I wanted. A slow chill crept up my spine. What do you mean, got attached? I asked carefully. She rubbed her forehead. I mean he started showing up at my apartment. Calling me late at night. Getting jealous when I went out with other people. And when I tried to cut it off, she hesitated again. I leaned in. When you tried to cut it off, what? Her voice dropped to a whisper. He threatened me. I went completely still. The air between us felt thick, suffocating. He said he'd make my life hell if I stopped talking to him, she continued, her voice barely above a breath. That he'd tell my boss I was sleeping around the office. That he'd make sure I never got another job in this industry. I felt like I was going to be sick. This wasn't just an affair. This was something else. Something worse. I gripped the edge of the table. You're telling me my husband, I could barely say the word, has been harassing you? She nodded. I tried to handle it quietly. I told him I wasn't comfortable. That we needed to stop talking. But he wouldn't stop. I opened my mouth, then closed it. My mind was racing, struggling to process what I was hearing. I had come here expecting confirmation that he had cheated. Instead, I was sitting across from a woman who was scared of him. I reached for my phone with a shaking hand. I needed to see for myself. I scrolled back to our texts from the night before. That last message. Eric, I think she knows. I had assumed he meant me. But what if he meant Lena? My throat went dry. I swallowed hard, then looked back at her. Why are you telling me this? She let out a bitter laugh. Because I want out. I don't want to deal with him anymore. And if you're smart, neither will you. We sat there in silence. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I wasn't just angry. I was afraid. Because if everything she was saying was true, then I had no idea who I was married to. I left the coffee shop in a daze, Lena's words echoing in my head. Eric hadn't just cheated, he had manipulated, threatened, controlled. I couldn't drive yet. My hands were shaking too badly. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel, breathing deep to keep myself from breaking down. I thought I had known the worst of it. That catching him texting another woman was the peak of my betrayal. I had no idea I was only standing at the base of the mountain. I scrolled through my texts again, rereading the last thing Eric had sent. Eric, I think she knows. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about Lena. He knew she was going to tell me. And he was scared. For the first time in my marriage, I realized something I never thought I'd have to consider. I didn't trust my husband. Not just with my heart. Not just with my marriage. I didn't trust him as a person. I had to go home. I had to confront him. I had to see for myself what kind of man I had really married. When I pulled into the driveway, Eric was waiting. He was sitting on the front steps, looking like absolute hell. His hair was a mess, his shirt was wrinkled, and his leg bounced anxiously. The second he saw my car, he shot up, eyes desperate. Where the hell have you been? He demanded, rushing over before I even got out of the car. I've been calling you all night. I stepped out, closing the door behind me, keeping my face unreadable. Had a conversation. His face twisted. With who? I tilted my head. You already know. That was all it took. Panic flickered across his face. He ran a hand through his hair, laughing nervously. Babe, listen, I held up a hand. Stop. He did. I had never seen Eric scared before. Not like this. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Whatever she told you, she's lying. I crossed my arms. She sounded pretty convincing. She's manipulating you. He took a step closer. She's pissed because I wouldn't leave you for her. That's all this is. She wants revenge. I stared at him. So she made up the part where you harassed her? His eyes darkened. His jaw tightened. I never harassed her. Then why was she scared? His nostrils flared. Because she's a dramatic little, he stopped himself. Too late. I saw it. The crack in his mask. The real Eric. For months, I had been gaslit into thinking I was crazy. That I was overreacting. That I was paranoid. Now, standing in front of me, my husband wasn't some guilt-ridden man who had made a mistake. He was furious that he had been caught. Lena told me everything, I said, voice quiet but sharp. The late-night calls. The threats. The way you showed up at her apartment when she tried to stop talking to you. His fists clenched. I did not threaten her. I pulled out my phone. So if I text her right now, she won't send me proof? His face drained of color. Got him. He took a step back, dragging a hand down his face. Jesus Christ. I tilted my head. What, Eric? What now? You going to tell me I imagined all of this? That she imagined it, too? He let out a humorless laugh. I knew she'd pull something like this. She didn't pull anything. My voice was rising now, my body shaking with rage. You did. You were the one who texted her at all hours. You were the one who couldn't let go. You were the one who, she wanted it, he exploded. The silence after that was deafening. His chest heaved. His face was red. I stared at him, disgust curdling in my stomach. She wanted it? I repeated, voice shaking. His lips parted like he was going to say something else, but he shut them just as fast. It hit me then. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't ashamed. He was just pissed that he had lost control of the situation. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay level. We're done. His head snapped up. What? I'm leaving, I said, my heart racing. I'll get my stuff and go. He grabbed my wrist. No. You're not thinking. I yanked my arm back. Don't touch me. His expression cracked. For the first time, I saw something real in his eyes, fear. You're serious, he whispered. I nodded. Completely. His hands shook. We can fix this. There's nothing left to fix. His breathing grew uneven. But I love you. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness. No, you don't, I said quietly. You love control. He swallowed, eyes desperate, but I had already turned away. I walked into the house. Grabbed a bag. Threw clothes inside, my mind numb. I didn't even know where I was going, but anywhere was better than here. Eric stood in the doorway, his hands in his hair, watching as I packed. Please, he whispered. I ignored him. For years, I had trusted this man. I had built my life around him. I had defended him, believed in him, loved him. And now? Now I was leaving without looking back. I stayed with my sister for a while. Filed for divorce within a week. Eric texted. Called. Even showed up outside my sister's place once, begging to talk. I never responded. Because he wasn't really asking for forgiveness. He was asking for another chance to manipulate me. And I wasn't giving him one. Lena quit her job and moved out of state. I never saw her again, but she sent me one last message before she left. Lena, I hope you get out for good. You deserve better. I did. It took me a long time to rebuild myself. To shake the feeling that I had wasted years on someone who never truly loved me. To stop questioning my own judgment, my own instincts. But I learned something important. Love isn't just words. It's actions. It's trust. It's respect. And the moment those things are gone, so is the relationship. If you ever feel like something is off, trust yourself. I ignored the signs for too long. I doubted myself when I already knew the truth. Never again. And if you're reading this, and something in your gut is telling you that your partner isn't who they pretend to be, listen. Because that feeling? It's never wrong.